Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is Monday, August 7th, 2023, and you're listening to the Daily AI Show Live. Welcome. Glad you guys are here. Today, we got almost the whole group, and we're going to be diving into some really great topics. We're going to be talking about what AI tools we are currently using in our own lives, our professional lives, our business lives, as well as, why we feel like they're, making our lives a little bit more efficient, and anything else that comes up, because this is sort of a free-flowing daily chat show. So we're here every day at 10 a.m., weekdays, that is. And with that, who wants to kick us off? Who's got that, hot tip? Who's got the best AI tool out there they feel like is just crazy, crushing it, changing their life?
I got it. It's ChatGPT.
That's all right, well, let's do it. Let's dive into ChatGPT. Let's do it. Why do you love it?
Yeah, I think everyone's, really familiar with it. It's, made the biggest splash and everything like that. I think it's probably going to become the training wheels version of chat that people are using to just dive in and get their feet wet and give it a shot. I like to use it mainly for research and ideation, things like that. It's really helpful for me to just bounce ideas, sort of thing. I will say, though, the more specialized or niche AI tools out there, like Hyperwrite and things like that, are a little more focused. So if I want to do a more specific goal or a specific result, I might use something like that. And that's basically their main selling feature, I think.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of tools like what is it, Jarvis, and a couple other ones that are sort of built off the same technology, right? And it's they're putting their little thing on it.
Jarvis anymore?
Not Jarvis anymore?
No, yeah. It's been Jasper for ages.
Jasper.
Using the name Jarvis. We'll try to.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Thank you. I forgot that they changed their name on there. That's right. They were. I sort of forgot that happened. I thought you were going to tell me they didn't use ChatGPT 3, and I was like, well, what did I miss? Okay, so ChatGPT.
Well, I will say, if anybody didn't hear, we could talk about the ChatGPT's recent upgrades this past week, which you're able to do multi-document conversations. So in Code Interpreter, you can add a document, you can compare, contrast, you can basically do some creative things. So to Jimmy's point, that it's a tool that's becoming, more robust. It is kind of training wheel product. I think it's the way they call it it's darn it, can't think of the word, but basically it's something that you use.
Gateway drug.
Gateway drug. That's right, Beth. You read my mind. It's a gateway drug to bigger and better things. But right now, it's where people go and they don't quite know where to go next. Like if you're maximizing the output of GPT, that's pretty great, but you're still in a fishbowl. I think you're not quite getting out there. But so that was one thing they released. Of course, you had the ability to update your profile, which is kind of neat. So it knows who it's talking to. It also has suggestive answers or questions after you've gotten an answer. Also, it's got suggestive prompts, so you don't sit there with a blank screen. So those are the 3 updates they did this past week, but nothing revolutionary, but interesting, I guess, to say the least.
Well, let's talk about, in the context of ChatGPT, the plugins that you use, because the plugins really advance the capabilities of the basic ChatGPT Q&A process.
I think it's really cool.
I use Show Me, which is a visualization tool that plugged in can allow you to ask ChatGPT to create a diagram, and you can provide text and it'll do that diagramming for you. And the other one that I use very frequently is Prompt Perfect, where you just use the word perfect at the beginning of your prompt, and it'll actually come back to you. After accessing that plugin, it'll come back to you with a revision of your prompt that'll help it do the prompt better.
Yeah, that I didn't know.
That's one of my favorites.
All right, so don't sleep on Wolfram Alpha or Alpha. Sorry that I don't know how to say your company name. ChatGPT is notably not good at math. you can put, like, I had a really complicated equation that needed to average like CPIW for 2 years and find the difference percentage between the 2 years and like do really crazy stuff. And I literally pasted the description, the word description of the calculation and the little sets of data. And it took, I don't know, 90 seconds to come back. And like it did 5 different calculations because you can see it working. But uh it's like mid-journey for math for me, right?
Really?
Like it let me stretch mathematically and statistically and that kind of stuff in a way that I really I barely knew enough to ask for what I wanted. And it was it was fascinating and very satisfying.
That's
And do
awesome.
you use that with Code Interpreter, or do you use it just with regular chat, like 3.5?
It's a plugin. It's literally a plugin. So it's ChatGPT 4. I tried it with Code Interpreter, and it was right before Code Interpreter went down, so like it was not having a good day. But it basically was like, well, because 9 is less than 7, my calculation is right. And I was like, can you look at that again? Is 9 less than 7? And it was like, oh yeah, no, you're totally right. 9 isn't less than 7. But because it's less than 7, my calculation is right, which is when I went to Wolfram Alpha. So
So what I'm
that's
doing
funny.
real quick here, guys, because I wanted to make sure that as we're excuse me, I wanted to make sure as we're talking about this that we'd be really clear about we're talking about ChatGPT overall, but you know, depending on where our audience is coming in, they may totally know what we're talking about plugins and Code Interpreter, but then again, maybe not. And so I just want to be sure we're being really clear about what's available at what level. So I went ahead and logged out as me because I have a pro plan. I think most of you guys do as well for ChatGPT. And then I logged back in under my daughter's account because I've been teaching her all year on how to use it, and she doesn't. So when she logs in, it says upgrade to plus, but she has 2 options. She has ChatGPT 3.5 and 4 at the top, and that's it. So she doesn't have the ability, free plan, she has access. I take it back. She doesn't even have 4. She only has 3.5 at this current time. So you would have to upgrade to get 4 faster response plus features like beta
Did you go back in the
features
bottom
like
left
browsing
corner to see
plugins.
under preferences if she's got options to turn some of those on? Because I know that you have to turn some of those on.
Under settings, it actually took me back to a login screen when I hit the settings. I don't, based on what it's saying, I don't believe so. So here's my point. I think everybody through a free account can get 3.5. You would have to pay to get some of the more, what they're calling beta features, as well as get into 4, which is okay. Because I think back to Jimmy's point, there's still a lot that you can do from the free side. In fact, I'll throw my name in there. I use ChatGPT all the time, but I use it to with my clients that I consult on. So I typically deal in the sales space. So for instance, I just got off a call with a small cohort of clients at one of my clients and a smaller cohort of people. And we were just talking about how to create better prompts, but they're doing it absolutely on the free side of ChatGPT. They don't, I'm not asking them to have access to anything better. Certainly would be, but they're creating really good now quality LinkedIn posts that are sort of a starter point for them to then go create new content on LinkedIn. So there's a great use case right there. And I mean, I use that daily with my clients. I mean, I don't ever shut down. There's 2. I never shut down ChatGPT, or 3. I never shut down Claude, and I always have Bing Chat open up now too. And I use all 3 of those all the time. And just for anybody out there wondering why all 3, for me, ChatGPT on the free side or whatever is really good at, doing all the things we just talked about. But if you need like more current data beyond 2021, then I'll go into Microsoft Edge, and their Bing Chat is ChatGPT 4, but you get access to it for free if you go through that route. And you can ask it questions against websites. So I can go to any blog and I can say, tell me more about or summarize this blog for me. So that's super valuable too. And then Claude, I just feel like Claude does a better job. And I'd love to hear what you guys think if you use Claude, for those that can, because I know not everybody has access to it. I think it does a better job with creativity. So when I'm looking for like really creative posts, I will typically lean on Claude more. And I find the answers to be better, honestly. So anyway, there's mine, but I just want to make sure we set the page too, because I know not everybody is into Code Interpreter, and we want to dive into some of these deeper topics. But just to sort of set the room of like what you would need to get there. So you would have to pay in order to get those higher features for sure.
And you know, honestly, I think for the price that ChatGPT costs, it's ridiculous not to have a paid account. I can understand your daughter not having one if she's not earning an income and you don't want to give her the money, Brian. But everyone else out there, I mean, if you couldn't save or make $20 in a month to pay for ChatGPT, you're just not even using it properly. I think it does so much, and I'm not even like that perfect prompt thing. I'd never even heard of that. So there's a new one I learned today, which is great. So I think it's awesome. I mean, I use it for marketing mostly, helping to come up with content. I mean, it's a great way to come up with a heap of ideas for blog posts, or to write blog posts, or to write video scripts for clients. I also use, we don't have access to Claude here in Australia at this stage. You mentioned, so I'm still waiting to find out what that's like. Looking forward to it. I use Descript, which is primarily a video editing tool, but it also does transcription of text, which is awesome. And I've got a plan where I can actually clone voices. So I've got my voice cloned for videos. I have clients' voices cloned for videos, and it's like $30 a month. You stick 10 minutes of training audio in, and it does a pretty damn good job of cloning voices. Midjourney, love Midjourney. Can't get enough of it.
Who do you use for the cloning? I use 11 Labs. Who do you use, Aaron?
So I use Descript.com.
Oh, for the cloning as well. Okay.
Yeah, it does a better job from my experience. The biggest problem with 11 Labs is it's primarily currently focused or leaning towards US accents. So like when I put my voice in it, it gives me a US version of me. And I've had that happen with a couple of clients as well. But I found that Descript does it's not 100%, but it does a pretty dang good job of duplicating my voice and any other people. Obviously, I'm not local to the US with my accent. So.
I wish it did the other way. I wish I put my voice in and it made me sound Australian. way more interesting.
That would be actually.
That's doable.
I got to tell you a quick joke, Brian. Many years ago, I had a sales job and we were cold calling into the US. And I had this lady who said to me, "Oh my God," no, this was almost how her voice said, "Oh my God, I love your accent. Where are you from? Scotland?" And I'm like, "Whoa."
Yeah, real close. Almost got it.
Yeah. So Midjourney is the other thing I'd throw. I think it's an amazing tool. I love it.
Well, let me throw one more into there since we bounced over to images. Is anybody else using Leonardo right now? I think I use Leonardo several times a week. So that's definitely in my tech stack, my AI tech stack at this point. Midjourney too.
Leonardo?
Yeah. Does anybody else use it?
Well, explain it. What is it?
Oh, explain it. So it's like a Midjourney. It has a much friendlier, because right now Midjourney is still only through the Discord channel, although I know they're coming out with their own sort of UX, UI. But
so these are text to image generators.
There you go, Beth. Thank you.
Correct. Text to image generators.
Remember, we're not talking to each other. We're talking to other people. They're listening. I think. I don't know. According to my live, nobody's listening to us, but it's okay.
Oh, I'm not worried about that. We'll get there. I forgot to go check mine. Text to image generators. And as a matter of fact, I can here. Well, why don't I just do this? Why don't I just share my screen? I'll show you guys what Leonardo looks like on the inside. And then you can kind of compare that, because again, you would have to be in Discord to use Midjourney. I think Midjourney, when it comes to like photorealism and stuff, they're doing a better job. Leonardo just came out with a photoreal feature, and we can kind of look at some of these, but I'll just show it really quick.
Is Leonardo free or paid?
Free. You get so many tokens per day. And then you upgrade if you want to pay for more, but you do get free tokens per day, and they reset every single day.
Because I can't see anything on that pricing or anything like that.
Okay, so this is what the inside of Leonardo looks like. And so my daughter and my daughter came to me, she's 12, and she said, Dad, I don't want to pay $30 anymore for a t-shirt from Urban Outfitters. And I was like, great, that's a great lesson. You should definitely work to do that. And she's like, I think I can probably create my own shirts. Do you think we could talk about how I would do that. So we went into this big deep dive using Claude and using using Pi this weekend, which we were all talking about on Friday. That was
Pi is what?
We'll get into Pi more. But using the AI assistant tool Pi, and we asked all sorts of questions about direct to fabric printing and direct to garment printing and sublimation and all these things I didn't know about previously. And so basically you can essentially use different sort of setups here, and then dynamic mode, and you can see you have a whole bunch of different options here. And then like Midjourney, you hit generate and it will create different options. So she was obviously trying to get like a Hawaiian flora, fauna. This was us joking around because we had seen another prompt, and it was a red panda doing gymnastics. My daughter's into gymnastics and stuff like that. But if we go out to just the main page, what you can see is obviously all the different types of examples, and you can see their absolute reality and their photorealism. Their 3D animator character is really, really good. But what I love about this, just kind of like Midjourney, but you have to scroll so much, you can get really good examples.
Mhm.
And then for any single one of these, like let's say this one actually looks pretty good as far as photoreal. You would come in here and you can say remix this. And so anyway, it's fun and it's really easy. My daughter was able to within 5-10 minutes of me showing her kind of where to poke around. I was like, look, you can't really hurt it. Go in there and see what you can do. And so we did a few together. And then at 12 years old, she was very quickly able to start putting in her own prompts and getting results, and then being disappointed in the result and then trying to fix the prompt. And it was a great little like sort of learning lesson of doing that or whatever. So
Gateway
anyway,
drug,
just want to throw that in
gateway
there as a tool
drug.
that I'm using every week. So what else?
Yeah.
We got ChatGPT. We talked about some of the text like
So,
the Claudes,
I wanna-
the Bings.
I want
What
to
else
jump
are
in
you
here
guys
real
using?
quick. Yeah. So we're talking about lots of basic tools, and I want to go back to basic for us, but I want to go back to the premise that we're in these bowls are one shot. These are single employee using, or single worker, single whatever person using this tool to complete a task. I mean, Aaron mentioned he does it for this, that, and the other. But where I feel like people are missing the boat on this is that next leap is understanding the tools where they're really going to be maximizing value is when they're automated. So you play with them on a one-shot basis. I'm making this t-shirt for my daughter. I'm doing a prompt for a blog or whatever. That's great and all. But where we really want to think about it and leap to the next level, or get from the pond to the ocean, is how to automate those workflows using APIs possibly to these tools. And that's where the big use case is. That's where you're going to 10x a company. I mean, you can 1, 2, 3x an individual by making, like Aaron, if I was doing my previous job, I was in sales and I was constantly waiting on the marketing department to do their thing. And they were like backlogged, and it was months before I got a stupid web page put together. I was like, just write me a blog, for crying out loud. I don't have to wait on them anymore. Right. So this allowed my department, which is just outside the marketing department, to be like, pardon my French, but screw you guys. I don't need you anymore. I can do my own thing. I just need you to post it. And then I still have to wait for them to post it, which that takes 2 seconds on WordPress. So, I don't know, maybe I'm just a little bit shell shocked from my previous experiences, but when it comes to the actual using the tool to make a single employee much more effective, that's great. But when we can take that times 5 employees and do it automatically for them, and then they're put into the loop where an AI can't be used, that's when we're talking about serious impact. And so something like, for example, we have a project that we're working on for a client, and it's going to be Airtable combined with OpenAI, combined with make.com, combined with a Google Doc. All right. So, and combined with an Airtable form. So they go into the form, they're talking to the client on a FaceTime or on a chat. I'm sorry, Zoom. They're recording the call, so it's being transcripted, but also they're answering questions. Those questions are then fed into Airtable to hold it there. And then make.com accesses each one of these line items. Okay. a specific question for whatever topic, addresses, get some great feedback, whether it be the marketing department's, persona segmentation or something, right? They can do a persona, and then they do it again and again and again. And then by the time it's done, we have output a Google Doc with a lovely presentation.
Nice.
Now,
Robert,
it sounds easy.
can you just clarify how Make orchestrates that process?
Yeah.
You're describing an automation, and
Right.
that's really at the centerpiece of that.
And
Yeah,
define those things, Airtable, Make,
Yeah, so
etc.
Airtable is a generic version of it. Is like Excel is one way of looking at it, but it's not Excel because each line is a one data set. So it's not the same as columns and rows, but that's one way. It's a place to house data in a very creative way that can be easily accessed and easily updated and inputted. So you can put data there, pull data off, and use it however you want, and then replace it. Make.com is like Zapier, and Zapier is a tool that's used to integrate different SaaS products. So the beauty of Make.com is it's very visual. You'll see these little logos and a little ... and then a ... and you can see how the pathway for an integration. So there's an API logo, a OpenAI logo, and so it goes to OpenAI, does an instruction. These instructions are very robust. All these instructions is built into the Make tool. But the beauty of Make versus Zapier is much prettier and easier to use, and I like it. So, and the third question, Andy, I forgot what you said, but yeah.
I think you covered that, but let's just touch on, what it is that Google Docs does, or Google Sheets in this particular case, probably.
Yeah.
That kind of ends up with the result that can be used by your work group.
Yeah, so the end result is a product that can be presented to a client, because what we do is we put the template together in Google Docs, and we put a code or double hashtag. So when we're ready to fulfill that or fill that document with client-specific data, we have the intros like, hello, and this is the company name in the intro. That's the same for every document. But the next paragraph is very bespoke, and it's pulled from each one of those API calls that we did to OpenAI based on all of the data that we pulled from the questions and from the transcript of the conversation. So now we have a paragraph we can insert there that OpenAI helped us craft that's based on their mission, vision, and values from the company. Boom. We understand how to really integrate that into the conversation. And then it's basically the Google Doc is the output. And we template it so that, it's some things this can be done manually, mind you, and it has been done manually for decades, right? People do this all the time, but now OpenAI is coming in there, or ChatGPT, or basically any language model that we want to tie to. So, sorry, not to take too much time, but that's a use case that I feel like is good to explain to people who are more advanced. Look, you can use it individual, one shot, make you better at your job, but then there's ways to automate some of that technology, implement it into a project.
Yep. And so I think an easy way to think about this is inputs and outputs. Since you brought that out, you said it's an output. You have multiple different inputs and then multiple different outputs. And when you think of it about an automation, you're just building and stacking those together, whether it's in Make or Zapier or whatever. So a really easy use case of this would be this show. So every day we do this show, every weekday we do this show. It provides 30 minutes of transcript, which is quite a bit of text. So we're going to talk about different topics. Today alone, we've mentioned 5, 6, 7 different products that we're currently using. Now, at the end of the week, we have 5 shows times 30 times all that transcript. Well, what if I wanted to take all that information and quickly summarize it, capitalizing on the top points, and turn it into a newsletter? Well, we can do that through an automation. We have several inputs and outputs. So inputs, this is an input. Okay. It's outputting a transcript we're using StreamYard. I can take that output transcript and I can turn it into an input and then tell it to give me another output. And I can do this in chain mode. Basically, I can add chains to it. Now you can then take those, go into a tool like a Zapier or a Make or whatever, and you can build an automation. So at the end of the road, the output, the Google Doc, if you will, would be a newsletter that's completely done for me, probably with minor human edits. And of course, you're gonna have to go in there. We're gonna have to check and make sure that it didn't misspeak, or at somewhere during the line, there wasn't an error where we got a hallucination a falsehood, something like that. But the great point, a great idea about, we've heard Rachel talk about this on the AI Exchange on TikTok about cautioning people against mega prompts. Mega prompts meaning this massive, massive prompt that tries to solve the world in one prompt. The problem is when it breaks, where do you go? But if you do it in the way that Robert's suggesting, or what we're talking about today, is you can use all these different tools and build them piece by piece. And the great part about that is, like, when one piece breaks, it's like going into good written code. It's much easier to go in there and figure out what broke and then make tweaks to that model in order to get the better output. So making minor tweaks to maybe one of the outputs that then becomes my next input. If it's linear, okay, it's like input, output, input, output, input, output, versus building upon them where it's multiple inputs and each one of those is cumulative and adds on.
Let me add,
that allows us to get better output out of it.
For the sake of terminology, that make.com and Zapier, those two base their initiation of automations that, do all of these potentially complex but also very simple things that result in an output. They listen for a trigger. So the trigger is a part of the language of automations. And a trigger can be as simple as, okay, we got a new email in with this tag on it. Okay. And that email then starts this chain of actions and operations that results in, literally seconds later, this complete output that was described here by Robert. And that team then has that as soon as the trigger is hit.
Yep. It's amazing.
And
look, an easy way to talk about this and just think about this is home automation, or if anybody used if this, then that back in the day before like Apple and every other person had their own automation kits. I used to use if this, then that. And it was a simple website that did exactly the same thing. It said, if the time is sunset, then go turn on that light in my house. And now we all think about that as being part of Echo and Alexa and all that kind of stuff. It's very, very easy, but that's an automation, right? There's triggers, sunset, do this thing. And so if this, then that, which still exists. But that's sort of where I always think about. And that's obviously the same idea, right, Andy, is that we get these amazing outputs, like you said, literally seconds later, which is the genius of it. Because at the end of the week, we'll definitely be able to get a whole newsletter, hopefully, out of this, right. And make it great.
And I'm going to even go simpler. If you have turned on like vacation mode for your Gmail, that's an that's an input and an output, right? You determine that when email comes in and this feature is on, what you have set at as the output gets sent in response. What we're talking about is just chaining multiples of those, and there's so much that can happen. It's so exciting.
Absolutely.
Well, what kind of tools are you using, Beth?
What kind of tools do I use?
Yeah.
I am very into Midjourney. I'm having a ball. And that was the other thing. Robert talked about basically a template in Google Docs. You can do that visually as well. And that's actually what Brian was talking about with his kid, right? So all of those aloha floral things were of a kind of style, and that can become a template. Right. So that kind of style could have different subjects in it, could have a different word in it or something like that. And so, yeah, I mean, essentially the way that I think about this is we're putting clothes in the closet, right? Like you have a subject and you decide what they're going to wear today. And so you put the clothes on the subject, which is your template.
Well, we only have about a minute or two left here. So why don't we just go around the horn really quick, because we all mentioned something, but we also were talking about it too. So Jimmy, you were kind of up first. Give us your 2 or 3 that you're using all the time that you would suggest that the people look into.
Right. Yeah. If you haven't dipped your toe in it yet, definitely ChatGPT. Ones I've been using right now is GoCharlie for a marketing focus. It's a tool that allows you to do multiple aspects of a marketing campaign, especially if you don't have a huge amount of experience. It's a good way to get in there and see what kind of components in your day-to-day marketing, whether that be blogs or, writing up a short Facebook post or anything like that. And then the other one that I've been working with is Hyperwrite AI. What I like most about it is it's a plugin for your Chrome or whatever browser, so it's always available when you want to do something. I even used it for my latest LinkedIn post, and I sort of had it run through an agent process. So really quick, an agent basically is sort of like an automation, but the AI is making the decisions on doing step 1, step 2, step 3. And so I had it create a post from some basic inputs. So that's essentially what I've been working on.
Okay, I'll jump into some next on the screen real quick. He already mentioned ChatGPT, Claude. If you're able to use it, some parts of the world don't have access to it yet, but Claude I really like. I also mentioned Bing Chat. So going into Microsoft Edge, free to use, and they have something called Bing Chat in the upper right corner, which is essentially the free way to get access to ChatGPT-4. It's also a great way to do summaries of blogs and web pages. So if you're into sales and prospecting, that's a gold mine. And then the other tool I mentioned was Leonardo, which is a Midjourney-like tool that has a really great UX. It shared a screen a little bit earlier, but I really, really like that one as well. Robert, what were some of the ones you mentioned?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate APIs. I mean, for those who are listening who might be a little bit more advanced, that I was just giving a use case for using APIs. And if you don't already have, I encourage you to register, try to get an API access for whichever tool you like. Play around within the playground if you want to use OpenAI, and then using make.com and Airtable. Those 3 integrations will solve pretty much any workflow automation that you can think of, or at least can play. That's a good starting point.
Aaron, how about you?
So ChatGPT, Midjourney would be the 2 most common. I've got a content writing tool which plugs into the OpenAI backend, so I use that a lot, and the script for video editing and audio. And then I have an AI video creation product called HeyGen that I use quite regularly.
Okay, Beth?
So I talked about Midjourney, I talked about the plugins, but I actually want to emphasize what Robert said. So if you're overwhelmed by all of this, go to ChatGPT and have a conversation. But if you're really excited about the power of stuff, start looking into the APIs, because that really is, he's totally right. That's where like the juice, the efficiency, the like, holy crap, am I happy to be alive in 2023 kind of moment.
I love it. And Andy?
And you don't need any more to know how to code to access an API. Those tools that we described are using the APIs, but with no code required. Literally point, drag, drop kind of interfaces. I'm just going to add that an AI-powered tool that I use at the heart of everything that I'm doing with all of my learning and research in AI is Notion. It's a personal database. It also has AI built into it. Doesn't use OpenAI. It uses Claude, I believe. Why it's important to note that as a different kind of note-taking and or personal database is that it's also used by almost all AI companies as a way of showing their help system, right? They publish in Notion, and it's a very facile system for them to publish their documentation. And so it's really versatile. It is a subscribed thing, but it's only $15 a month. And if you want to start taking notes about AI, I suggest Notion.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, we're about there on time, so we'll wrap it up for today. Guys, we'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern and the rest of this week as well. This was awesome. And if any of you guys need follow-up on this, we'll try to make sure it's in the show notes as far as the different tools we mentioned, all that stuff. Other than that,
like the stream. Like the stream, like the page, like the.
Oh yeah,
like...
go if you guys can go like the Daily AI Show on LinkedIn. That would be a huge help to us as we grow our followers, which gives us the ability to stream directly to that page. So yeah, that'd be super helpful. Thanks, Beth. All right, that's it. See you guys tomorrow.